I am Adam, 32 years old, and I never thought I would be labeled the villain in my own family. When I gave my brother Kevin 48 hours to pay the $2,000 in back rent he owed me, or move out, my entire family turned against me. They called me heartless, cruel, and worst of all, a terrible brother. Little did they know that 2 months later, they would all be calling to apologize. If you are watching this story from somewhere where family drama hits close to home, hit that like button and subscribe now. Trust me, you will want to see how this family conflict ultimately led to an unexpected resolution. Let me take you back to the beginning. I am a senior systems architect at a tech company in Seattle. I have worked hard to get where I am today, starting from humble beginnings in a small town in Washington state. My parents were hard-working middle-class folks who always emphasized the importance of education and financial responsibility. They did their best, but money was often tight in our household. I took their lessons to heart. Throughout high school, I worked part-time jobs, saving every penny I could for college. When I got accepted to the state university, I was ecstatic, but also aware of the financial burden ahead. I worked 20 hours a week while maintaining a full course load, surviving on ramen noodles and coffee. After graduation, I spent 5 years aggressively paying off my student loans while living in a tiny studio apartment with 3 roommates. By 29, I had finally saved enough for a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house in a nice suburban neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. The mortgage payments were substantial but manageable with my salary, and I had even started building a decent emergency fund. Financial security was something I valued highly after watching my parents struggle. My younger brother Kevin, on the other hand, took a different path. 7 years younger than me at 25, Kevin had always been the charming one in the family. Handsome, athletic, and naturally charismatic things seemed to come easily to him, perhaps too easily. While I was grinding through college classes and work shifts, Kevin was the high school football star who everyone adored. Our parents, especially our mother, always had a soft spot for Kevin. When he decided college was not for him after just 1 semester, they supported his decision. When he wanted to try his hand at being a musician, they helped him buy equipment. When that did not work out and he wanted to become a bartender, they helped him get certified. His dream jobs changed monthly, but our parents never stopped believing in his potential. Kevin had a pattern that became familiar over the years. Initial enthusiasm for a new venture, followed by complaints about unfair bosses or working conditions, followed by quitting. All the while he maintained an active social life, and somehow always had the latest phone or fashionable clothes, despite his inconsistent income. I loved my brother, but I also recognized these concerning patterns. Whenever I tried to have conversations with him about financial planning or career stability, he would brush me off, saying I was too uptight and needed to live a little. Our relationship was generally good, but punctuated by these moments of frustration on my part. Then came the day about 8 months ago when Kevin called me in tears. He had been evicted from his apartment because he had fallen behind on rent. His roommates were done covering for him, and he had nowhere to go. He swore he had learned his lesson and just needed a temporary place to stay until he could get back on his feet. He had a promising job opportunity lined up at a local bar and grill, and things would be different this time. My instinct was caution, but family is family. After thinking it over, I offered him my spare bedroom. Under specific conditions, he would pay $500 monthly in rent, which was well below market rate for our area, help with household chores, and limit his stay to 6 months. While he rebuilt his finances, he agreed enthusiastically, thanking me profusely and promising not to let me down. The first month was great. Kevin moved in with his few possessions, kept his space clean, and even took initiative around the house, mowing the lawn and fixing a leaky faucet. He started his new job as a server and came home excited about the potential tips he could make. On the first of the month, he handed me 5 crisp $100 bills for his rent, even adding a nice bottle of whiskey as a thank you gift. I started to think maybe my brother had turned a corner. Maybe the eviction had been the wake-up call he needed. We spent evenings watching sports together, grilling on weekends, and even started a tradition of Sunday morning breakfasts, where we would catch up on our weeks. For once it felt like we were connecting as adults and equals. But around the 3-month mark, things began to change. It started with small things: dishes left in the sink overnight, lights left on in empty rooms, the lawn going unmowed despite gentle reminders. Nothing major but noticeable shifts from his initial helpfulness. Then came the first hint of financial trouble. The rent due date arrived, and instead of the cash in hand as before, Kevin had a story about his paycheck being delayed due to a new payment system at work. He promised to have it in a few days. A week passed, then another. Finally, after numerous reminders, he gave me $300, promising the rest would come with his next check. I wanted to believe him. I really did. As the fourth month of our living arrangement began, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Kevin was consistently late with his rent payments, and each time the excuses grew more elaborate. One month it was a problem with the direct deposit system. The next it was an unexpected car repair. Then came a story about having to loan money to a coworker in dire straits. I tried to be understanding. Life happens and unexpected expenses are a reality for everyone. But what bothered me was the disconnect between his claimed financial hardships and his lifestyle. Despite supposedly struggling to make rent, Kevin never seemed to cut back on other expenditures. He would come home with bags from expensive clothing stores, sporting new sneakers that I knew cost hundreds of dollars. Almost every night he would go out with friends, returning in the early morning hours, smelling of alcohol and cigarettes. His phone was always the latest model, and he maintained subscriptions to multiple streaming services and food delivery apps. Meanwhile, his contributions to the household dwindled to nothing. The chore chart we had created together hung ignored on the refrigerator. The trash would overflow before he would notice it needed taking out. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink until I cleaned them myself, tired of the fruit flies they attracted. He would leave lights on, take 30-minute showers, and crank the air conditioning, driving up the utility bills that I alone was paying. At first I tried the gentle approach. "Hey Kevin, could you remember to take out the trash when it gets full?" Or, "The electric bill was pretty high this month. Can we try to be more conscious about turning things off?" He would apologize, promise to do better, and nothing would change. By month 5, my frustration was mounting. One evening, after coming home from a particularly stressful day at work to find the kitchen a mess and Kevin nowhere to be found, I decided it was time for a more serious conversation. When he finally returned around midnight, I sat him down at the kitchen table. "Kevin, we need to talk about the rent situation," I began. "You are now behind by $1,500 and the household chores are not getting done either. This was not our agreement." He immediately looked contrite. "I know, man, and I feel terrible about it. Things have been rough at work. The manager has been cutting my shifts and the tips have not been great. I promise I will catch up next month, when things turn around." I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. "Is everything okay at work? You seemed excited about the job at first." Kevin shifted uncomfortably. "It is fine, just some internal politics. The new manager does not like me much, but I am looking at some other opportunities too. There is this really promising gig at a cocktail bar downtown that could double my income." I nodded, trying to be supportive despite my skepticism. "That sounds good. In the meantime, though, we need to figure out a plan for the back rent. Maybe we could set up a payment schedule." He agreed readily, and we created a plan where he would pay an extra $200 each month until the debt was cleared. He also recommitted to the household chores. Once again, I allowed myself to hope that things would improve. The next day, I received a call that would change everything. It was from Michael, a mutual friend who worked at the restaurant where Kevin claimed to be employed. I had mentioned to Michael in passing that Kevin seemed to be having some issues at work, and his response shocked me. "Adam, Kevin has not worked here for almost 2 months, Michael said. He was let go for repeatedly showing up late and missing shifts. I thought you knew." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. For 2 months, Kevin had been pretending to go to work, leaving the house in his server uniform and returning with elaborate stories about difficult customers and workplace drama. All lies. That evening, I did something I am not proud of. While Kevin was out, I went into his room. I was not looking to snoop, but I needed to understand what was going on. On his desk, I found past due notices for credit cards, along with receipts for purchases that totaled thousands of dollars. There was also a letter confirming his acceptance into a poker tournament with a $1,000 buy-in scheduled for the following weekend. The pieces fell into place. My brother was not struggling financially because of bad luck or a difficult boss. He was making intentionally poor financial choices and lying to cover them up, all while living rent-free in my home, using my utilities, eating my food, and leaving me to clean up after him. The final straw came a week later. After confronting Kevin about the job lie, he had tearfully confessed, claiming he was too ashamed to tell me he had been fired. He promised to look for work immediately and asked for just a little more time to get back on his feet. Against my better judgment, I gave him that time. Then I came home early from work one day with a migraine to find a brand new 65-inch smart television being delivered to our house. The delivery men were just leaving as I pulled into the driveway. "Nice television," I commented, as I walked in to find Kevin excitedly setting it up in the living room. "When did you decide to get this?" "Is not it awesome?" he grinned, not picking up on my tone. 4,000 pixel resolution, built-in streaming voice control, the works. Got it on a great deal too. "How much?" I asked, my migraine pounding harder. "Just $800, he replied, still focused on connecting cables. "The sales guy said it was the deal of the century." "And how did you pay for it?" I pressed, already knowing the answer would infuriate me. "Credit card," he shrugged. "Low monthly payments. Do not worry about it." In that moment, something inside me snapped. My brother was now $2,000 behind on rent, unemployed, with no prospects, contributing nothing to the household, and had just spent $800 on a luxury purchase. $800 that could have gone toward his debt to me. The disrespect and lack of consideration were breathtaking. I realized then that I had not been helping Kevin by providing a safety net. I had been enabling behavior that would ultimately destroy him and damage our relationship beyond repair. Something had to change, and it had to change immediately. After discovering the television purchase, I spent the evening driving around the neighborhood trying to calm down before confronting Kevin. I needed to approach this rationally, not from a place of anger. By the time I returned home, I had made my decision. Kevin was sprawled on the couch watching a basketball game on his new television, a pizza box and beer cans scattered on the coffee table. He barely looked up when I entered. "We need to talk," I said, turning off the television with the remote. "Hey," I was watching that, he protested, reaching for the remote. I held it away. "This is important, Kevin. We need to have a serious conversation about our living arrangement." Something in my tone must have registered because he sat up straighter, his expression wary. "What about it?" I sat across from him, maintaining eye contact. "I know you have been lying to me. You have not had a job for 2 months. You are $2,000 behind on rent. You have not done any chores in weeks. And now I come home to find you have spent $800 on a television when you supposedly cannot afford to pay me what you owe." Kevin's face went through a rapid series of expressions: surprise, guilt, defensiveness, and finally a kind of calculated contrition. "Look, I know how this looks, but the television was a once-in-a-lifetime deal. I was going to tell you about the job, but I did not want to disappoint you. I have been sending out applications every day, I swear." "Show me," I challenged. "Show me the applications you have sent." He fumbled for his phone, scrolling frantically. "They are. I mean, I have been doing it on my laptop mainly, which is being repaired right now." "Kevin, stop lying," I said firmly. "It is insulting to both of us. Here is the situation: you have taken advantage of my generosity. You have broken our agreement multiple times. You have lied repeatedly. And you have shown zero respect for me or my home." His expression hardened. "So what are you saying? You are kicking out your own brother. Where am I supposed to go?" "I am giving you an ultimatum," I replied steadily. "You have 48 hours to pay me the $2,000 you owe in back rent, or you need to move out. Those are your options." Kevin stared at me in disbelief. $2,000 in 2 days. "That is impossible. You know I do not have that kind of money." "You had money for a new television," I pointed out. "You have money for bars and new clothes and whatever else you have been spending on. Your financial priorities are your choice, but living here is not free." "This is about the television," he exploded, standing up. "Fine, take the damn television. Is that what you want? This is not about the television, I clarified. This is about patterns of behavior and respect. The television is just the latest example of your choices. So you are really giving me an ultimatum, your own brother. His voice rose in volume. What happened to family looking out for each other? Family does look out for each other, I agreed. But that includes accountability and respect, both of which have been missing from your end. I have been looking out for you by giving you reduced rent, a place to stay, food, and utilities. What have you done to look out for me? He had no answer for that. Instead, he grabbed his phone. Fine. You want to play hardball? Let us see what Mom and Dad think about this. Before I could respond, he was calling our parents, walking into his bedroom and slamming the door. Through the wall, I could hear his voice, high and emotional, though not the specific words. I sat on the couch, a strange calm settling over me. I knew what was coming, but I also knew I was making the right decision. Sure enough, within 15 minutes my phone was ringing. It was our mother, her voice tight with worry and accusation. "Adam, what is this I hear about you throwing Kevin out on the street?" she demanded without preamble. I explained the situation, calmly laying out the facts about the missed rent, the lies about employment, and the pattern of irresponsibility. I emphasized that I was not throwing him out, but giving him a choice. Pay what was owed or find alternative arrangements. "He is your brother," she countered emotion, making her voice waver. "How can you be so cold? He is going through a rough patch." "Mom, this is not a rough patch. This is who he has become because we keep rescuing him from consequences," I tried to explain. "I cannot believe how heartless you are being," she replied. "After everything this family has done for you." The conversation deteriorated from there. My father got on the line, his disappointment in me evident. My sister Megan called next, berating me for my cruel treatment of Kevin. Even my Aunt Linda reached out, suggesting I had changed, and not for the better. The narrative Kevin had spun was powerful. His successful older brother, living comfortably, was throwing him out over a small financial disagreement during a difficult time in his life. The context, the lies, the patterns of behavior were all conveniently omitted. By midnight, I felt completely isolated from my family. Text messages poured in, each more hurtful than the last. My cousin wrote, "Money over family, never thought you would be that guy." My uncle suggested I had forgotten where I came from. My sister sent a particularly painful message, "I do not even recognize who you have become." I went to bed that night questioning myself. Was I being too harsh? Was I letting money come between family bonds? But then I remembered the months of lies, the disrespect, the taking without giving. This was not about money. It was about responsibility and consequences, lessons Kevin desperately needed to learn. The next morning, Kevin was coldly polite, informing me he would be moving out the following day. He made no mention of paying the back rent. Instead, he played the martyr, sighing heavily as he packed boxes and making phone calls within earshot about his impossible situation. By evening, several family members had offered him temporary accommodations, each message to him sent with a pointed absence of communication to me. The family had chosen sides, and I was clearly the villain in their story. Despite the doubt and hurt, I stood firm. Sometimes the right decision feels terrible in the moment, but I could not continue enabling behavior that would ultimately harm my brother more than help him, even if it meant being labeled heartless by those I loved most. The day Kevin moved out was tense and uncomfortable. He had accepted our parents' offer to stay with them temporarily while he got back on his feet. Several family members came to help him pack, each giving me cold looks or avoiding eye contact altogether. My mother barely spoke to me, her disappointment evident in every clipped word and rigid movement. My father helped load Kevin's belongings into his truck without meeting my eyes once. The new television interestingly went with Kevin. Apparently it was his property despite the rent he owed. I chose not to fight that battle. Material possessions were not worth further damaging already strained relationships. I also noticed several items from my home disappearing into boxes that did not belong to Kevin. A Bluetooth speaker I had received as a work anniversary gift, my collection of vinyl records, and even my grandfather's vintage watch that had been in my bedroom. When I pointed this out, Kevin looked offended. "I am not stealing your stuff," he said indignantly. "The speaker was a gift from you, remember?" You said I could borrow the records and Grandpa would have wanted me to have his watch anyway. None of these claims were true, but arguing in front of the family would only make me appear more petty and materialistic in their eyes. I let the items go, chalking it up to the cost of this painful lesson. By evening, Kevin was gone, along with the strange tension that had filled the house. I should have felt relief, but instead a profound loneliness settled over me. The house, once again mine alone, felt too quiet, too empty. Despite the frustrations of the past months, I missed my brother's presence, or at least the relationship I had hoped we were building during those first positive weeks. The family exile began in earnest after Kevin's departure. Sunday dinners at our parents' house, a tradition I had rarely missed, continued without me. When I called to ask about attending, my mother made excuses about limited space or having small, intimate gatherings this time. The family group chat fell silent whenever I commented, conversations continuing as if I had not spoken. Thanksgiving was particularly painful. For years, our extended family had gathered at my Aunt Linda's house for a massive celebration. This year, my invitation never came. When I called my sister to ask about it, she was uncomfortably vague. "It is just going to be a smaller thing this year," Megan said, not quite lying, but not telling the full truth either. Instagram photos later revealed the usual large gathering had indeed taken place just without me. Christmas brought a perfunctory card from my parents with a gift card enclosed, but no invitation to the family celebration. I spent the day with friends, putting on a brave face while checking my phone periodically for messages that never came. The isolation extended beyond family gatherings. Mutual friends reported awkward encounters with Kevin, where he painted himself as the victim of a greedy, materialistic brother who cared more about money than family. Some friends took his side, questioning what kind of person would make their own brother homeless over a mere $2,000. Others, particularly those who knew me well, were skeptical of Kevin's version, but still uncomfortable being caught in the middle of family drama. Through it all, I tried repeatedly to explain my perspective to my parents. I sent thoughtful emails detailing my concerns about Kevin's behavior patterns and my belief that continuing to shield him from consequences was harmful in the long run. The responses, when they came at all, were brief and dismissive. "We know you think you are doing the right thing," my mother wrote, "but family supports each other unconditionally." That word, unconditionally, bothered me deeply. Was enabling self-destructive behavior really the loving choice? Was allowing someone to take advantage of you without accountability truly what family meant? Despite my certainty that I had made the necessary choice, the weight of family disapproval took its toll. I found myself withdrawing from social situations, tired of defending my actions or pretending everything was fine. My work performance suffered as I spent nights replaying conversations, imagining what I could have said differently, wondering if there had been another solution I had overlooked. My friends became my lifeline during this period. Jordan, my best friend since college, was particularly supportive. Having witnessed Kevin's behavior patterns over the years, he understood my decision in a way my family could not or would not. "You did not kick him out," Jordan reminded me over beers one night. "You asked him to honor his commitment. There is a difference." Lisa, another close friend, offered similar perspective. "Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love most," she said, "but that does not make them any less necessary." These conversations helped, but they could not completely erase the pain of family estrangement. I found myself driving past my parents' house, sometimes slowing down to see the lights on cars in the driveway, life continuing without me. I wondered what they were discussing, if Kevin was thriving under their care, if anyone ever defended my perspective in my absence. Through social media and mutual connections, I learned that Kevin had settled into life at our parents' house. He had apparently found a new job at a local electronics store, though details were scarce. Our mother had proudly shared the news online, noting how he was turning things around after a difficult period. No mention of what that difficult period had entailed or my role in his supposed redemption. I made one last attempt at reconciliation in February, about 6 weeks after Kevin had moved out. I sent a carefully worded email to my parents, acknowledging their disappointment in me, but reaffirming that my actions had come from a place of concern, not cruelty. I suggested meeting for coffee neutral ground, where we might begin rebuilding bridges. My father replied with a single line, "We are not ready for that yet. Kevin is still very hurt by your actions. It seemed my brother's feelings were the priority, his version of events the accepted truth. My perspective remained unwelcome and unheard. I resigned myself to a prolonged estrangement, hoping that time might eventually soften hearts and open minds. I focused on my work, threw myself into home improvement projects, and tried to rebuild the life that family drama had disrupted. Then exactly 7 weeks after Kevin had moved out, everything changed with a single phone call. It was a Tuesday evening when my phone rang, displaying my sister Megan's number. I almost did not answer. Our last few interactions had been strained, at best hostile at worst. But curiosity won out, and I accepted the call. Adam. Her voice sounded different, subdued, and uncertain. Do you have a minute to talk? Of course, I replied, bracing myself for another lecture about family loyalty. I owe you an apology, she said, the words tumbling out quickly as if she might lose her nerve if she slowed down. We all do. I am so sorry for how I treated you, for the things I said. You were right about Kevin, and I should have listened. For a moment I could not speak. Of all the scenarios I had imagined for this call, an apology had not been among them. What happened, I finally managed to ask. Megan sighed heavily. Everything you warned us about. She proceeded to tell me what had transpired over the past several weeks. Initially, Kevin had been the perfect houseguest at our parents' home. Helpful, appreciative, full of stories about job interviews and promising opportunities, much like the first month he had spent with me. But gradually, predictably, the pattern reasserted itself. The promised job at the electronics store never materialized. There were always excuses. The manager had changed, the position had been filled, the hours did not work with his other projects. Meanwhile, Kevin slept until noon, left dishes in the sink, monopolized the television, and treated our parents' home like a hotel. He keeps saying he is just about to catch a break, Megan explained. Mom and Dad wanted to believe him, just like they always have. But then last weekend I stayed over after Dad's birthday dinner, and I saw it all firsthand. She had witnessed Kevin returning home at 3 a.m, clearly intoxicated, with a group of rowdy friends who raided our parents' refrigerator and liquor cabinet before finally leaving at dawn. The next day, our mother had gently asked Kevin about his job search, and he had erupted in anger, accusing her of nagging and not understanding how hard things were for his generation. It was like watching a toddler tantrum in a grown man's body, Megan said. That is when I started to really see what you had been dealing with. But the real revelation came when our parents started noticing financial strains. Their credit card bill was higher than usual, with charges they did not recognize. Small amounts of cash began disappearing from our mother's purse. Our father's golf clubs, which he rarely used but cherished, nonetheless vanished from the garage, with Kevin claiming ignorance about their whereabouts. The situation escalated when our mother found empty liquor bottles hidden in Kevin's room while changing his bedsheets, along with a small bag of pills she did not recognize. When confronted, Kevin became defensive and manipulative, first denying everything, then minimizing it as just to help me sleep, then deflecting blame. This would not happen if you had not let Adam kick me out. Mom called me crying, Megan continued. She finally asked me if I thought you might have been right all along. And I had to admit that you were. We all enabled Kevin for years, making excuses for him, bailing him out, never holding him accountable, and now he is worse than ever. She told me our parents were at their wits' end. Our father, approaching retirement, was concerned about their savings being drained. Our mother, always Kevin's staunchest defender, was beginning to recognize the harm their permissiveness had caused, but they were struggling with how to establish boundaries after decades of having none. They are afraid to talk to you, Megan admitted. They feel ashamed for how they treated you, and they do not know how to make it right. But they need your help, Adam. We all do. You were the only one brave enough to stand up to Kevin, and we shot you down for it. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also sadness for my family's pain and concern for my brother's increasingly destructive path. There was no satisfaction in being proven right under these circumstances. What can I do? I asked. Would you be willing to come over on Saturday? She asked tentatively. Just you, me, Mom, and Dad. Kevin is going to a concert in the city and will be gone all day. We need to talk as a family about how to handle this. I agreed without hesitation. Despite everything, these were the people I loved most in the world. If there was any chance to heal these wounds and help Kevin in the process, I had to take it. The days until Saturday crawled by filled with anxiety and anticipation. What would I say to my parents after months of strained relations? How could we address Kevin's issues without falling back into old patterns? I researched addiction resources and enabling behavior, preparing myself to be as helpful as possible. When Saturday finally arrived, I drove to my parents' house with a knot in my stomach. The familiar driveway where I had played basketball as a kid, the porch swing where I had told my parents about college acceptances and job offers, all triggered memories of happier, simpler times. I sat in my car for several minutes, gathering courage before walking to the door. My mother answered, her face a mask of complex emotions. Without a word, she pulled me into a tight hug, her small frame shaking with silent sobs. My father stood in the hallway behind her, his eyes red, rimmed and tired, looking older than I remembered. "Son," he said, simply embracing me, after my mother finally let go. The single word contained volumes of unspoken apology. We gathered in the living room, the atmosphere heavy with things unsaid. My sister arrived moments later, completing our diminished family circle. For a few minutes, no one seemed to know how to begin. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Adam, we owe you an apology. A big one. You were right about Kevin, and we were wrong to turn against you." My mother nodded, dabbing at her eyes. We did not want to see it. For so long we have made excuses for him, telling ourselves he just needed more time, more support, more understanding. But we were hurting him, not helping him. "And we hurt you in the process," Megan added. "We chose to believe what was comfortable rather than what was true." Their words were healing balm to wounds I had carried for months. Not because they admitted I was right, that had never been the point, but because they were finally seeing the reality of the situation, no longer blinded by wishful thinking or manipulated by Kevin's distortions. "I understand," I said sincerely. "Kevin is your son, your brother. You wanted to protect him. So did I, in my own way." "But protection is not always what someone needs," my father said thoughtfully. "Sometimes what looks like protection is actually prevention from growth." We spent the next several hours in honest conversation about Kevin, his history of manipulation, the patterns we had all observed but rationalized away, the signs of substance abuse that had become increasingly difficult to ignore. My mother revealed that Kevin had maxed out her credit card without permission. My father admitted that the missing golf clubs had likely been pawned, along with several other items that had mysteriously disappeared. "We need to stop this cycle," my mother said firmly, a new resolve in her voice. "For Kevin's sake as much as our own, but we do not know how." That was when I shared the research I had done on enabling behaviors and addiction. We discussed the concept of tough love, the importance of natural consequences, and the difference between supporting someone and enabling their self-destruction. I suggested we consult a family therapist who specialized in addiction issues, someone who could provide professional guidance for our specific situation. The hardest part, I admitted, will be staying united. Kevin has always been skilled at playing us against each other, making one person the bad guy while currying favor with others. That is how he isolated me so effectively. They nodded, acknowledging the truth of this observation. Kevin had indeed presented different versions of himself to different family members, tailoring his behavior and stories to elicit the desired response from each. "Not anymore," my father said resolutely. "From now on, we present a united front. No more secrets, no more separate deals or arrangements. We communicate with each other about what Kevin says and does." We agreed to meet with a therapist as soon as possible, even scheduling an appointment for the following Tuesday with a counselor my sister had researched. The session was illuminating, with the therapist helping us understand the dynamics of enabling and codependency that had shaped our family interactions for years. "Your brother did not develop these behaviors in a vacuum," the therapist explained gently. "They were reinforced over time by well-intentioned responses that nonetheless taught him manipulation works better than honesty." It was a difficult truth to hear, but a necessary one. We were not just responding to Kevin's problems. In many ways, we had helped create them through years of misguided love and protection. Armed with new understanding and professional guidance, we developed a plan. Kevin would be presented with clear expectations and boundaries, if he wished to continue living with our parents. He would need to seek help for his substance issues, contribute financially to the household, and demonstrate responsibility through actions, not promises. It would not be easy. The therapist warned us that Kevin was likely to resist fiercely, using every emotional tool that had worked in the past. He might rage, plead, promise, threaten, or attempt to divide us. Our challenge would be maintaining our resolve in the face of these tactics. Remember, the therapist advised, if you truly want to help Kevin, you must be willing to withstand his anger and accusations. Real love sometimes means being the bad guy in someone else's story. I knew that truth all too well. But this time I would not be standing alone. A week after our initial family meeting, we gathered again, this time with Kevin present. He entered the living room cautiously, clearly confused by the unusual family assembly. His appearance shocked me. In just 2 months he looked thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervousness to his movements that had not been there before. "What is this?" he asked, his gaze darting between us, before settling accusingly on me. "What is he doing here?" My mother spoke first, her voice gentle but firm. "Kevin, please sit down. We need to talk as a family about some important things." "If this is an intervention or something, you can forget it," he snapped, already turning to leave. "I do not need this." "Son," my father said with an authority I rarely heard him use, "sit down, now." Something in his tone broke through Kevin's defiance. He slumped into an armchair, arms crossed defensively. "We love you," my mother began. "All of us do, including Adam. And because we love you, we cannot continue to watch you hurt yourself and others." What followed was one of the most difficult conversations I have ever been part of. Each family member spoke in turn, expressing both love for Kevin and concern about his behaviors. We presented specific examples, not accusations but observations: the missing items, the maxed-out credit card, the empty bottles, the broken promises. Kevin cycled through his usual tactics. First, denial. Those things must have been misplaced. Then minimization. Everyone has a few drinks now and then. Then deflection. This is really about Adam being upset. I took his television right. Finally, he tried to divide and conquer, appealing to our mother with puppy dog eyes and reminders of how she had always understood him better than anyone. But this time, united by our shared understanding and preparation, we remained steady. When Kevin realized his usual methods were not working, his demeanor changed dramatically. "Fine. You all think I am some kind of monster," he shouted, jumping to his feet. "I will just leave then. See how you all feel when I am gone for good." "Kevin," I said, quietly, speaking directly to him for the first time, "no one thinks you are a monster. We think you are someone who is struggling and using unhealthy methods to cope. We want to help you find better ways." He laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you want to help, after throwing me out on the street." "I did not throw you out," I corrected calmly. "I asked you to honor our agreement, or find another living arrangement. There is a difference." "Whatever helps you sleep at night," he muttered. Our mother leaned forward, taking Kevin's hand despite his attempt to pull away. "Honey, we have an appointment tomorrow with a counselor who specializes in young adults dealing with substance issues and life transitions. We would like you to come with us." "I do not need a shrink," he scoffed. "Then you will need to find somewhere else to live," our father stated plainly. "Those are the options, Kevin. Get help and stay here under the new house rules we have established, or move out. Your choice." Kevin stared at him in disbelief. "You would kick me out, your own son." "We would require you to take responsibility for your life," my father corrected. "Just like Adam did. That is not the same as abandoning you." For the first time, Kevin seemed to realize that something fundamental had changed. The safety net that had always caught him regardless of his choices was now conditional. His expression shifted from anger to fear. "I cannot believe this," he muttered, looking from face to face and finding only resolve. "You are all ganging up on me now." "We are all agreeing on what healthy support looks like," Megan clarified, "and it does not look like what we have been doing." Kevin fell silent, his bravado crumbling. Then, to my surprise, his eyes filled with tears. Not the manipulative tears I had seen him produce on command since childhood, but genuine, painful emotion. "I do not know what is wrong with me," he admitted in a small voice. "Everything I touch falls apart. I keep thinking the next job, the next opportunity will fix everything, but then I mess it up somehow. I do not mean to lie or take things. It just happens, and then I hate myself for it, which makes everything worse." It was the most honest I had heard my brother sound in years. The admission created an opening, a crack in the defensive wall he had built. Carefully, gently, we stepped through it together. Over the next several hours, Kevin revealed more than he likely intended. How he had started using pills to manage anxiety about finding his place in the world. How alcohol helped quiet the voice in his head that constantly compared him to me and found him lacking. How debt had piled up until it seemed insurmountable, leading to more lies to cover the growing financial hole. "I was jealous of you," he admitted to me during a particularly raw moment. "You always seemed to have it all figured out. College, career, house. I wanted what you had, but I wanted it to come easily." "It never came easily," I told him. "You just did not see the struggles." By evening's end, Kevin had agreed to attend the counseling appointment, albeit reluctantly. It was a small step, but a significant one. For the first time, he was acknowledging there might be a problem beyond bad luck or unfair circumstances. The following weeks were far from smooth. Kevin attended therapy but often returned sullen and defensive. He balked at the house, rules, my parents, established a midnight curfew, no guests without prior approval, mandatory family dinners, and a small rent payment each month. There were setbacks, including one night when he disappeared for 36 hours, returning disheveled and refusing to explain where he had been. But gradually, incrementally, things began to change. The therapist diagnosed Kevin with depression and anxiety, starting him on medication that seemed to help stabilize his moods. A support group for young adults with substance issues provided peer connections who understood his struggles in ways we could not. My parents stuck to their boundaries with impressive resolve even through Kevin's most difficult days. When he missed curfew, he found the doors locked as promised, forcing him to call and wake them for entry, an embarrassment he was eager not to repeat. When he failed to pay his token rent on time, my father removed the television from Kevin's room until payment was made. These natural consequences, while uncomfortable, began teaching Kevin what we had failed to impart for years. Actions have outcomes both positive and negative. My own relationship with Kevin remained complicated. Trust once broken rebuilds slowly. But we were talking again, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with surprising openness. I invited him to dinner at my house, occasionally neutral territory, where we could interact without the weight of our shared history pressing quite so heavily. During one such dinner about 6 weeks after the intervention, Kevin handed me an envelope. Inside was $400 in cash. "It is a start," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Toward what I owe you. I know it is nowhere near the total, but I am working on it." He had taken a job at a warehouse, not glamorous, but steady work with benefits. The fact that he had saved this money rather than spending it on immediate gratification spoke volumes about his progress. "Thank you," I said, simply recognizing the gesture for what it was. Not just financial restitution, but a symbolic acknowledgement of the harm done and a step toward making amends. Our family began healing too. Sunday dinners resumed now, with Kevin participating in cooking and cleanup rather than being served as the perpetual child. My parents apologized formally for their treatment of me, acknowledging the pain their rejection had caused. "We got it wrong," my father said during one such dinner. "We confused loving Kevin with protecting him from consequences. In the process, we hurt you, the one who was actually trying to help him grow up." My mother added tearfully, "Can you forgive us for not listening, for choosing the comfortable lie over the difficult truth?" I could and did. The months of estrangement had been painful, but I understood the powerful emotions that had driven their choices. Parents naturally protect their children. The instinct runs deep. Recognizing when protection becomes harmful is a difficult lesson, one they had now learned through painful experience. By the 3-month mark after Kevin moved out of my house, our family dynamics had shifted dramatically. Kevin was not cured. His issues had developed over years and would not resolve overnight. But he was taking responsibility in ways that would have been unimaginable before. He was meeting with a financial counselor to address his debt. He was consistently taking his medication and attending therapy. He was working full-time and contributing to the household. Most importantly, he was honest about his struggles, rather than hiding them behind charm and deception. When he felt the urge to drink or take pills, he called his sponsor. When money was tight, he discussed it openly, rather than resorting to theft or manipulation. The path was not linear. There were still bad days among the good, but the trajectory was unmistakably upward. As for me, I had learned valuable lessons too, about standing firm in difficult truths even when it costs you in the short term, about the complexity of family love, which must sometimes be tough to be truly kind, about forgiveness not just for others but for myself, for the doubts and anger I had harbored during the darkest days. One evening, as Kevin and I shot baskets in our parents' driveway like we had as kids, he paused, ball in hand, and looked at me seriously. "You know I hated you when you gave me that ultimatum," he admitted. "I thought you were just being a jerk, lording your success over me." "I know you did," I replied. "But it was the best thing anyone has ever done for me," he continued, bouncing the ball absently. "If you had not drawn that line, I would still be spiraling, still blaming everyone else for my problems. So, thank you, I guess." The words were awkward, imperfect, but sincere. I clapped him on the shoulder too, moved to speak immediately. Then I stole the ball and made a layup, breaking the emotional tension with brotherly competition. Some lessons are best acknowledged simply, then integrated into the new reality we were all building together. 2 months to the day after I had given Kevin the ultimatum that fractured our family, we gathered for another kind of intervention. This time it was a celebration of sorts, marking Kevin's 60 days of sobriety and his first full month of employment without a single absence or lateness. We met at a restaurant. Kevin had chosen a casual place where he had once worked briefly as a server. He had insisted on making the reservation and even pre-ordering appetizers for the table. Small gestures, but significant ones for someone who had previously expected others to manage such details. As we settled into our seats, I was struck by the visible changes in my brother. He had gained back healthy weight. His clothes were clean and pressed, and the nervous energy that had characterized his movements had been replaced by a calmer presence. He still fidgeted with his napkin, a habit from childhood, but the frenetic quality was gone. "I wanted to get everyone together because I have some news," Kevin announced after our drinks arrived. 2 things, actually. We waited expectantly. My parents exchanged cautiously hopeful glances. After so many false starts and broken promises in the past, we had all learned to moderate our expectations. First, Kevin continued, "I got approved for my own apartment. It is nothing fancy, just a studio near work, but it is within my budget, and they were willing to work with my credit situation." "That is wonderful, honey," our mother said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. I could see her fighting the urge to ask a dozen follow-up questions about the neighborhood, the lease terms, the security deposit. Instead, she simply added, "We are so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom," Kevin smiled. "And second, I got a promotion at work. Assistant shift supervisor. It comes with a small raise and more regular hours." This time, the congratulations flowed freely from all of us. The promotion represented something important, not just additional income, but recognition of Kevin's reliability and work ethic qualities that had been notably absent in the past. "There is one more thing," Kevin added, his expression growing serious. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table to me. "This is for you, Adam." Inside was a check for $1,600, along with a handwritten note. The check, combined with the $400 he had given me previously, equaled the $2,000 in back rent he had owed. "How did you manage this?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Given his salary and expenses, saving this amount so quickly must have required significant sacrifice. "I sold some things," he explained. "The television, my gaming system, some other stuff I did not really need, and I have been putting aside half of each paycheck. It was important to me to clear this debt before moving into my own place." The note accompanying the check was simple but profound. "Thank you for being the brother I needed, not the brother I wanted. I am sorry for everything. This is just the beginning of making things right." I swallowed hard, unexpectedly moved by this tangible evidence of Kevin's transformation. The money itself was less important than what it represented: accountability, responsibility, and a commitment to making amends. "I do not know what to say," I admitted. "You do not need to say anything," Kevin replied. "Just maybe. Trust that I am trying to be better." "I already do," I told him honestly. Our father raised his glass in a toast to new beginnings and hard-earned wisdom. We clinked glasses, the simple ritual sealing a moment of genuine family healing. The conversation flowed easily after that, touching on Kevin's apartment plans, Megan's recent promotion, our parents' upcoming anniversary trip. Normal family talk unmarred by the tension and walking on eggshells that had characterized our interactions for so long. As we finished dinner, Kevin asked if I would help him move into his new place the following weekend. The request was significant. We were rebuilding not just cordial relations, but the brotherly bond that had been damaged by months of deception and conflict. "Of course," I agreed. "I will bring the truck and some muscle." Kevin laughed. "And maybe some advice on setting up a place? You always were better at that stuff than me." "Deal," I said, recognizing the olive branch for what it was. Later that night, back at my house, I reflected on the journey of the past few months. What had begun as a painful fracture in our family had ultimately led to necessary growth and healing. Kevin was taking his first real steps into adult responsibility. Our parents had learned to love without enabling. My sister and I had strengthened our bond through shared understanding. And I had found a voice I did not know I possessed, one that could speak difficult truths even when it meant temporary rejection. The process had been messy, painful, and imperfect. There were still hurts being mended, trust being rebuilt day by day. Kevin's recovery was ongoing, with challenges yet to face. But the direction was clear, the foundation stronger than before. I thought about the many families navigating similar waters, struggling with how to love someone battling addiction or trapped in patterns of dependency. There are no perfect answers, no guaranteed outcomes. Each family must find its own path through these complex issues, guided by both compassion and courage. What I learned through our experience was that true support sometimes requires standing firm when every instinct cries out to rescue and protect. That enabling is not love, no matter how much it might feel like it in the moment. That family bonds can withstand difficult truths if there is a foundation of genuine care beneath them. Most importantly, I learned that it is possible to hold someone accountable while still loving them completely, that these are not contradictory but complementary aspects of meaningful relationship. Kevin continues his journey one day at a time. There have been stumbles along the way, a missed therapy appointment, a close call with old drinking buddies. But the difference is that now he faces these challenges openly, with a support system that encourages accountability rather than escape from consequences. As for our family, we continue learning and growing together. My parents have joined a support group for families of people in recovery, finding community with others who understand their specific challenges. My sister has become an advocate for mental health awareness in her workplace. And I have found new confidence in standing by my principles even when doing so is deeply uncomfortable. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the natural outcomes of their choices. Sometimes being called heartless by those we love is the price of truly helping them grow. And sometimes, if we are fortunate, they eventually recognize that what looked like cruelty was actually the deepest form of care. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that others misunderstood, or set a boundary that initially caused conflict, but ultimately led to positive change? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else facing a similar situation right now. And if you found value in my family's journey, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most loving choice is also the hardest one to make.